Shabbat Shalom. It's good to see everyone here this evening, and again, welcome all those who are watching us on our live stream. It truly is a pleasure to know you're watching us, being with us, wanting to be part of our community in the best way we can right now. And our hope and prayer is that you feel part of us. You feel part of Beth Yeshurun. Now, times weren't hard enough over the last several months for us as human beings, as Americans. In a way, they've been almost doubly hard for us as Jews. When just a few weeks ago, Philadelphia Eagles football player Desean Jackson posted something falsely attributed to Hitler. This is what he posted. Let me share it with you as you see it on your screen. It says, Hitler said, because the white Jews knows that the Negroes are the real children of Israel, and to keep America's secret, the Jews will blackmail America. They will extort America. Their plan for world domination won't work if the Negroes know who they were. The white citizens of America will be terrified to know that all this time they've been mistreating and discriminating and lynching the children of Israel. This is a quote that's been falsely attributed to Hitler for many, many years. And a football player, a famous one at that, with millions of followers, decided to post that on his Instagram feed. The very next day, NBA Hall of Famer Desean Jackson, who had been highly involved in Black Lives Matter protests and racial justice following the death of his friend George Floyd, instead of criticizing Desean Jackson, he said Desean Jackson was speaking the truth when he put up that quote from Hitler. Desean Jackson said in a video on his Instagram about Desean Jackson's post, he said he was just trying to educate people himself, and he's speaking the truth, right? He's speaking the truth, you know. He don't hate nobody, but he's speaking the truth of the facts that he knows and trying to educate others. And then Desean Jackson went on to perpetuate Jewish stereotypes, saying that Jewish people control the banks. When his co-host on the Instagram Live that he was participating in said, Jewish people aren't trying to divide the black community, Jackson responded, you know that for a fact? You know who the Rothschilds are, he said? They control all the banks. They own all the banks. When the co-host said that the Rothschilds aren't reflective of the entire Jewish community, Jackson said they're correlated to money. And I haven't said one thing that's not true yet. When the co-host argued that Jackson could denounce the idea that the Jewish community is trying to divide the black community, Jackson continually responded that it wasn't his job to say what other people want. And then if it wasn't bad enough, this time not an athlete, but an actor, a TV show host and musician, Nick Cannon, decided to also become an anti-Semite. In a podcast episode that featured Cannon interviewing an anti-Semite named Richard Griffith, throughout the interview, Cannon engaged in some of the worst anti-Semitic conspiracy theories around, asking, for example, why, quote, we give so much power to the Days, and the Days turn into Zionists and the Rothschilds. Of course, again, referring to the wealthy Jewish family, which is often used as a dog whistle for anti-Semitism. Where does this all come from? How could it be that athletes and celebrities, famous personalities, seemingly good people, will perpetuate such vile anti-Semitic tropes? Where does this originate? My friends, it often originates from Louis Farrakhan. For more than 30 years, Louis Farrakhan, leader of the Nation of Islam, has been a notable extremist figure, rallying against Jews, women, white people, and the LGBTQ community. In recent years, Farrakhan has embarked on a wide-ranging campaign specifically targeting the Jewish community, a campaign that has featured some of the most hateful speeches of his tenure as head of the Nation of Islam. Over the years, his speeches have attracted a range of politicians and other public figures. He draws thousands of attendees to his speeches. He has millions of followers, which gives him the dubious distinction of being quite possibly our nation's most popular anti-Semite. Farrakhan has made up all sorts of lies and conspiracy theories about our people. He's alleged that our people, the Jewish people, were responsible for the slave trade, and that we conspired to control the government, the media, and Hollywood, as well as various black individuals and organizations. He frequently denies the legitimacy of Judaism or Jewish claims to the land of Israel, arguing that Judaism is nothing more than a deceptive lie and a theological error promoted by Jews to further their control over America's government and economy. And thus his false theory that we as Jews are not the real children of Israel, but that black Americans are the real children of Israel. And we saw that conspiracy theory perpetuated by the likes of Desean Jackson, Stephen Jackson, and Nick Cannon, and too many others. A theory that not only distorts the true history of the Jewish people, but then goes on to say that we as Jews are so evil that we would gladly steal that from blacks in our goal of controlling not only black Americans, but all Americans. Over the years, unfortunately, his speeches of hate have attracted numerous supporters found in all walks of life: politicians, athletes, actors, and actresses. One of my sports heroes, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, said it well when he denounced other athletes who were perpetuating some of Farrakhan's theories, reminding them and all of us that celebrities have a responsibility to get the words right. It's not enough to have good intentions, he said, because it's the actual deeds and words which have the real impact. And he's right. Athletes and celebrities don't have dozens or hundreds or thousands of followers, but people like Stephen Jackson and Desean Jackson and Nick Cannon have millions and millions of followers. And what they post and what they say and what they do does have a real impact on the safety of the Jewish people, on the safety of other minority groups. It has a negative influence, and they should be held accountable. What can we do? I think it's imperative upon us as Jews not only to speak out against Farrakhan, but we also must speak out when other people, no matter how famous they are, quote Farrakhan, repost anything he says, or stand with him. When past presidents sit with him at a funeral, it should not be okay. When comedians, even Jewish ones, repost anything that Farrakhan says, it should not be okay. We can look to John Lewis, may he rest in peace, as a great example. The great civil rights icon who passed away earlier this week had a deep connection with the Jewish community throughout his life. In 1995, the Nation of Islam founder Louis Farrakhan set out to convene black men in Washington, D.C. at a rally meant to extend the symbolism of the 1963 March on Washington. Some prominent figures from the civil rights movement attended that million-man march on Washington, including Rosa Parks. But John Lewis said he would not attend because of Farrakhan's track record, which then has now included anti-Semitic comments. John Lewis said at the time, "I cannot overlook past statements by Louis Farrakhan and others associated with the Nation of Islam, which are divisive and bigoted. Although its general goal of encouraging African American men to be responsible is sound, the march is fatally undermined by its chief sponsor." Shouldn't we all live in a day and age where we would expect other people, no matter who they are, to speak out so courageously like John Lewis? To say that no matter what Farrakhan says, I will not stand with him. We would expect the same for anyone. God forbid they would stand with someone like David Duke. Shouldn't we expect the same for anyone who would stand with Louis Farrakhan? John Lewis was a true friend of the Jewish community. We'd be wise to heed his guidance when he said, when you see something that is not right, not just, not fair, you have a moral obligation to say something, to do something. Because our children and their children will ask us, what did you do? What did you say? Now, my friends, a warning to us as Jews. Too often I hear that, Rabbi, someone will call me and say, Rabbi, the anti-Semitism that we do sometimes find in the black community, the ridiculous and outrageous statements some leaders of the Black Lives Matter protests have said about Israel. And people will call me and say, Rabbi, I see those comments, I hear what happens, I see what people like Desean Jackson have done, and therefore I can't support the current protests and the March for Equality. They're all anti-Semites. My friends, that's not true. Let us not perpetuate the myths of stereotyping. Yes, there is some anti-Semitism in the black community, but let us not use that very, very, very small amount of anti-Semitism that I believe is actually happening in our black communities. Let us not use that as an excuse to ignore the challenges our black friends and neighbors deal with every day. Abraham Joshua Heschel, the great rabbi of the 40s, 50s, and 60s, during the height of the civil rights era, Dr. Martin Luther King led a march, as he did many, from Selma to Montgomery. Rabbi Heschel joined Martin Luther King on one of those marches, and when he returned from Selma, Alabama, he was asked by someone, Rabbi, did you find much time to pray when you were in Selma? The rabbi responded, I prayed with my feet. His marching, his protesting, his speaking out for civil rights was his greatest prayer of all. Yes, there is some anti-Semitism in the black community. There are elements of the Black Lives Matter protests that are anti-Zionist, and we should speak out against it. But I truly believe, and I think we all know in our hearts, that an overwhelming majority of people in the black community and those fighting against racism are not anti-Semitic and have nothing against the state of Israel. We can and we should stand with those people. We should pray with our feet. Not only is it the right thing to do, our actions can demonstrate that we as Jews do care. We care deeply, as we should, about the challenges our black friends still face in this country. Another step we can take, let us educate our black friends about our long-term bonds between our two communities. For you see, Jews and blacks in this country have been connected for decades. Two marginalized groups who often work together in the long-standing fight for civil rights here and across the world. Our linked paths brought us together at the heights of the civil rights movement. It's a past we can be proud of. Can it be a past we can repeat today? For example, during the Freedom Summer of 1964, two Jewish men and one black man named Andrew Goodman, Michael Schwerner, and James Chaney were murdered in Mississippi while trying to register black Americans to vote. Some of you participated in those protests and spoke out against the racism of the time. Let us remind all Americans that we as Jews have a proud history of standing up for all minorities in need. Let us continue that great legacy. And another step we can take, a difficult one, but let me end with this, because perhaps it's the most important step of all. What do we do when there are the Desean Jacksons and the Nick Cannons? when after their mistakes and their horrific mistakes, what do we do if they reach out to us and ask to be forgiven? Nick Cannon reached out to Rabbi Abraham Cooper, the Associate Dean of the Simon Wiesenthal Center in Los Angeles. The rabbi could have and rightfully said he was not interested in meeting with Nick Cannon, but instead, the two met at Cannon's home in Los Angeles, and Cannon uploaded their nearly 2-hour discussion to YouTube as the latest episode of his podcast, Cannon's Class. He said to the rabbi, "I know how you could have taken many of the things that I said as hate and propaganda, but that was never my heart and intention. I was talking about how amazing black people were, but it hurt so many that weren't part of that community while I was trying to encourage and uplift my own community." He told Rabbi Cooper, "I've asked to be corrected from your community. Give me books, teach me. I'm an empty vessel, an empty, broken vessel. Teach me, fix me, lead me." And toward the end of their long conversation, which I encourage you to find and watch on YouTube, Rabbi Cooper told Cannon, "The core question for everyone in the Jewish community is, are you sincere? Are you real?" Cannon replied, "Do you feel I'm sincere?" And the rabbi answered, "At this point, yes. If what I'm hearing is an interest and a commitment to want to do things together to move forward for the betterment of people, that will be the proof of the pudding." And since that time, Cannon pledged to donate his first paycheck of the Mass Singer to support the activities of the Simon Wiesenthal Center. And he also has met with the film division of the Wiesenthal Center to discuss collaborating on a future project to reach members of the Black and Jewish communities. The rabbi concluded, "It's not so much of changing minds, it's a matter of opening up minds and opening up hearts. If you can do that, then we have a shot at it." And let me conclude, what about Desean Jackson, the NFL player from the Philadelphia Eagles who started this latest controversy? There's an incredible man, 94 years old, a Holocaust survivor named Edward Mossberg, who still travels the world to share the horrors that he saw during the Holocaust. When he saw Desean Jackson's post, he saw an opportunity for enlightenment. He reached out to Desean Jackson to explain why he thinks blacks and Jewish Americans should be highly connected in their fights for equality, and to teach him about what can happen when hatred of any kind is left unchecked. The 94-year-old invited Jackson to visit Auschwitz next year, and Mossberg said that the football player, Desean Jackson, immediately accepted his offer. Maybe there are times when we should seek rapprochement, accept dialogue, to teach those who are unfortunately, and often is the case, misled by the likes of those like Louis Farrakhan. Perhaps there's an opportunity to enlighten those who can be enlightened, to see that we share so much in common. Let me end with this great video posted by NFL football player Julian Edelman, who I think his words teach us a lot about what we can do when we encounter anti-Semitism.
I've been getting hit up by everyone asking me about this Desean Jackson post, and I wanted to take some time before I responded because it's a complicated issue, and I wanted to be thoughtful. I wrote down some of my thinking. I've seen Desean play in his career, make outstanding football plays. We've communicated over social media. I've got nothing but respect for his game. I know he said some ugly things, but I do see an opportunity to have a conversation. I'm proud of my Jewish heritage, and for me, it's not just about religion. It's about community and culture as well. I'm unusual because I didn't identify as Jewish until later in my life. Whenever I encountered hatred, it never really felt like it was aimed at me. It was only after I was part of this community that I learned how destructive hate is. Anti-Semitism is one of the oldest forms of hatred. It's rooted in ignorance and fear. I remember experiencing a little bit of this hate in 2011 when I was called a kike on the football field. There's no room for anti-Semitism in this world. Even though we're talking about anti-Semitism, I don't want to distract from how important the Black Lives Matter movement is and how we need to stay behind it. I think the Black and Jewish communities have a lot of similarities. One unfortunate similarity is that they are both attacked by the ignorant and the hateful. It's really hard to see the challenges a community can face when you're not part of it. So what we need to do is, we need to listen, we need to learn, we need to act. We need to have those uncomfortable conversations if we're going to have real change. So to that end, Desean, let's do a deal. How about we go to DC and I take you to the Holocaust Museum, and then you take me to the Museum of African American History and Culture. Afterwards, we grab some burgers and we have those uncomfortable conversations. This world needs a little more love, compassion, and empathy. Take care.
And according to news reports, Desean Jackson will take him up on his offer. Thank you, Julian Edelman, for your important and inspiring words.